What's up, guys? BTR, Beast of the Rebel, back at you again. There was one particular topic, man, or analogy that I made in one of my previous videos. It's about Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco. For those who are not familiar with his name being Chad Johnson, I know how that thing is. And what I wanted to talk about was, or expound more on, was this concept of being a bad employee, but it doesn't necessarily make you a bad entrepreneur. And so in my previous video, I talked about how Chad Johnson was this individual on a team. And when you think about that concept of being an individual on a team, especially when it's not your team, right? You're under the rules and regulations and the guidelines of the team, of the company policies, right? And so Chad conducts himself in a certain way. It's flamboyant, charismatic, and not necessarily that it's volatile or that he's nothing like Antonio Brown or nothing like that. But it's just that he's an individual on the team, and he's more at least the way people would perceive him is that he's about himself. Now, at times, you got to understand when you're working for another person's company or at another person's company, you get to constantly see people, whether it be your coworkers or management, right, where they want you to act a certain way. Not necessarily that they're working, like that your work ethic is in question. And I've been at companies like that before, where that's why I tell people all the time, man. Like for me, it's 100%. I got to be an entrepreneur because I'm not gonna fire myself because I don't adhere to walking a certain way, talking a certain way. I've been in places, man, where there was a lady who was mad that I didn't say yes ma'am to her. And she thought I had attitude because I didn't say yes ma'am. So, I mean, just little things like that where we're trying to enforce terminology in a way that we're going to speak to each other. That has nothing to do with if I'm a bad worker or not. You just mad that I didn't say ma'am, yes sir, no sir. It's not the military. So why are we talking like this? Not that you can't say yes ma'am and no ma'am to people, yes sir, no sir. But when it's enforced, you're probably not getting that. Not for me. So when you think about that concept of being a bad employee, you got to understand it doesn't mean you're a bad entrepreneur. It doesn't mean you're going to be bad if you go in business for yourself. Because oftentimes people get fired for not following in line. If you don't follow in line, you don't buy into the system. People constantly talk about that. Another sports analogy, you're thinking about Bill Belichick or you're thinking about Greg Popovich. Constantly you'll hear people say, are they buying into the system? Are they buying into the culture, right? It's not just a question of is this person going to produce on the court. It's about how is this guy going to ingratiate himself in the locker room. So when you're thinking about how he's going to ingratiate himself into the locker room, whether it's a football player or whether it's a basketball player for Pop, you got to also think about what type of personality does that mean, right? Because certain skill types, like if you're thinking about this, a great player is useful for any team, but a certain personality is not useful for every team. And it's the same thing in terms of working for someone else's company, that you might have a skill set that's useful for any company that you're going to work in terms of if it's in that particular industry that you desire to be in. But you may not have a personality that is that's going to help you, whether it be help the company, not in the sense of help them make money. You might help them make money, but if you're not knowing your role and shutting your mouth, as The Rock would say, then a lot of times and oftentimes then you're going to find yourself on the outside or struggling to gain employment in terms of moving up the economic ladder, finding different ways to bring income to your life through this particular company. So as an entrepreneur, you have to always think about how am I going to make my company better? How am I going to increase profit, revenue, etc. Right? And for me, as a CEO of Mars, the founder, all that good stuff, right? You gotta, and shout out to Keenan X, man, the rapper, man. Check him out on Spotify, check him out on Tidal, Apple Music, all that good stuff, man. More music, and also check me out, Beast of the Rebel, on every platform you can think of. But when you're thinking about, like, for example, like me, my goal is with the Modern Age Rebel Society is to promote fulfillment, to promote not just positivity, because that's a general term, right? But also to promote this concept of I'm going to go for mine and not just simply wait for others to give it to me, because what I want to be is financially independent, but I also want to help others do that as well. And when you're talking about that, there's going to be things that stifle you and make these things a little more difficult. And a lot of times a 9-to-5 job is what's going to make it difficult, but at the same time, it's also necessary for most of us, unless we come from a certain background to where we can just keep playing around and not have a job or not have some source of income until the big money starts to roll in. But when you're thinking about trying to go into entrepreneurship, if you struggled into the workforce thus far in your career, working for others, working at other people's company, what I want you guys to understand is that should not deter you from trying to own your own company. That doesn't mean you can't own your own company. That doesn't mean you won't do it correctly. Now, what is important is self-rule. If the only reason you get up is because your alarm clock says it's time to get up and go to their company, make their dreams, their goals, their desires, their obsessions, making that possible, and you don't get up for your own, you're probably never gonna make it. Unless you hit the lottery. And that's still, that's what are the odds of that, right? But you can increase your odds if you create this self-rule concept, get up on your own schedule. Make sure, and the thing is, you gotta understand, your business, especially in today's time, is 24/7. Today's business is 24/7. There is no, we're only open from 6 to 3. No, it's 24/7. Social media age. Every company, whether they say their office hours are only 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day or 24/7, doesn't matter. Every company is 24/7. Everybody's working first, second, and third shift to try to get their company into the position that they want it to be in. And that's how you got to view your company. So when you're working at these other places, understand, bro, like if you think that if they offer you overtime, but you haven't found nothing better to do, maybe you should take the overtime. But if you found something better to do with your time in your off days or your off hours or your off time, don't take the overtime. Now, also, you got to always thinking about this concept of, okay, I'm working at this company. I need X amount of hours to execute this plan that I want. Like, for example, like for me, what if I needed X amount of time to continue working on my book, make more videos, make music, etc., podcasts, interviews, etc. If I'm working at another person's company, I can't give everything to them, right? Because I need certain time, because if you're thinking about, like, for someone like me, I have interviews that I'm trying to conduct. I'm not working on my own schedule when I'm doing these interviews. I'm working on my guest schedule oftentimes. So I can't take extra hours, a ton of hours, if I'm going to get this interview going. Now, in the meantime, obviously the immediate, the micro perspective, I might be losing money, right? Because these interviews ain't popping the way maybe that they should or that they will one day. But to me, these are investments. These are solid investments that I'm making in my life, my time, and I thoroughly enjoy them. Like the Jono Carroll interview, I thoroughly enjoyed the interview. I enjoy, talking to Reyes the entrepreneur. These are people that I didn't think I see on TV, people I see on YouTube. These are people I didn't think I'd get the opportunity to speak to. And now I'm able to talk to these people on a first name basis. So, you're able to make connections, you're able to do different things, but you got to constantly be making these investments in yourself, not just financially. And that's the thing that people oftentimes forget, that investments are time. The most important thing you have is time, period. You can lose money, gain it, lose it, gain it over and over. But the greatest thing you have in your life is time, period. So you got to utilize your time, utilize your thoughts. So I constantly try to tell people, man, if you had a tough day at work and you're an entrepreneur, this is for my entrepreneurs, of course. This is for the people that in it for themselves. If you had a tough day at work, do not stress over it once you get off. It's time to go back to work. So if I had a bad day at work, it's time to go right back to Mars and go work on that, because stressing about that, for one, is unhealthy. Two, doesn't benefit me at all, right? I don't even want to be there anyway in terms of long term, right? So I got to constantly think about how am I going to benefit myself, make my life better, make it better for my family, X, Y, and Z, right? But that's it. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the notification button. And remember, the goal is to be the greatest podcaster of all time. And that's what I'm going for, guys. I would always want to promote that positivity, fulfillment, man. And I'm so anti, not necessarily just working for others, but I'm anti doing things that you hate, and I'm pro fulfillment, bro. So make sure you guys are always following, checking out the page, like, share, subscribe. It's always appreciated. Thank you.